Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 2nd, 2025 work session of the Haverford Township Board of Commissioners. Tonight's meeting gives us an opportunity to preview and discuss the agenda items scheduled for next week's regular meeting and to hear updates on key township matters. Before we move to roll call, I'd like to begin by mentioning that the Board of Commissioners met in executive session following the August 11th Board of Commissioners meeting to discuss a personnel-related matter. We met again in executive session prior to the meeting tonight to discuss legal matters. So we'll begin the meeting with a roll call. I'll ask our Assistant Township Manager, Amy Cuthbertson, to now take the roll.
Commissioner Gondek?
Present.
Commissioner Forstey-Grupp? Here. Commissioner Cavender? Here. Commissioner,
Holmes.
who are you? I wasn't given the list for my one duty in this meeting. Commissioner Holmes?
Here.
Commissioner Quinn?
Here.
Commissioner Hart?
Here.
Commissioner McCollum?
Here.
Commissioner McCluskey?
Here.
Commissioner Trombetta?
Here, thank you. I now ask everyone to once again, to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Chief Viola. The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As outlined in the agenda, I'll begin the meeting with Commissioner Committee updates. I invite any of my colleagues who wish to share updates from their respective committees to do so at this time.
Madam President.
Yes, Commissioner Holmes.
The Finance Committee met again. They met this evening to talk about and discuss upcoming issues and budget discussions that we'll be getting into much more detail of in the fall.
Thank you. Any other commissioner updates? Hearing none, we'll move on to our police department update. So Chief Iola, I ask you to come up to the podium and present your update for the month.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to start off by saying we started our program today with the Bicycle Safety Initiative at the middle school this afternoon. We had a great response. We gave it about 30 free cupcake certificates, and we gave out 10 warning certificates that we made up today with a future explanation of what will happen in January. We have wonderful news coverage. Channel 10 was up there. I had them come down. They spoke to Sweet Messina, Gabrielle, which was a plus for her. I'm very happy with it. She got coverage for that, and it was on Channel 6 this morning also. So it's good news. So we'll get the word out there, and hopefully we'll be able to get kids safely ensconced in headgear. So the monthly chief's report for August: 21 criminal arrests, 2 juvenile arrests, 397 traffic citations, 19 non-traffic, 74 written warnings, and 474 parking tickets, 1 burglary attempt at 100 East Eagle Road. A victim reports she had 3 potential renters in their home and possibly stole some items and jewelry. We have 3 motor vehicle theft attempts, 2100 block of Chestnut Avenue. The vehicle left was on the last seen on Lancaster Avenue and one of our cameras. 400 block of Steel Road, a Ford Fusion was taken, and 2900 Berkeley Road, a Volkswagen was stolen from there. Auto theft from autos attempts 12, 2400 block of Clover, 300 block of Bryant Street, 2600 block of Chestnut, 700 block of Humphreys, 600 block of Lorraine, unit block of Stanton, 200 block of Greenbrier, unit block of Stanton, another 200 block of Greenbrier, 200 block of Lincoln, 2 on Lincoln, and 1 of 300 block of Walnut, and 1 bicycle scooter theft from Coles. And we had canine usage too, deployed to Aston Township to track a theft from the PD Bank. And then on 8/19, I'm sure everybody's aware of the escaped criminal was arrested here, handed over to the constables, and the person broke loose out of the vehicle at Baltimore and Turner. We sent officers down there to help pursue and arrest the actor. That's the report.
Thank you, Chief. Do any of my colleagues have any questions for the Chief?
I'm just curious how the first day of school went today.
Flawless.
Yeah.
Even the middle school, I'm talking to the principal, nobody could figure out why everything went so well this morning.
Okay.
We're waiting for other shoe to drop. But
Yeah.
Buck Lane, we looked up there. We were happy with the results. The school buses didn't block anything.
Oh, good.
We had one move, but aside from that, everything went well today, really did. We had a lot of police officers out around the schools, a lot of heavy coverage. All the crossing guards came back today, as everybody's fresh and ready to go to work.
And
you.
Chief, I'd like to thank you guys for your response to that hoax that took place down the street here. And I just saw your cops just go right for it as the surrounding towns did. So once you hear that news, you don't even look, you just go.
Right,
So
exactly.
thank you.
Thank you, Connor.
Any further comments or questions?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. So I now welcome the Township's Director of Emergency Medical Services, Chief Jim McCanns, to the podium. September is recognized as National Recovery Month, and in observance of this important awareness month, we invited Chief McCanns to provide a presentation that will give our board and the community a deeper understanding of how the township is responding to addiction, the resources available, and ways that we, as residents and community leaders, can help foster a healthier, more supportive environment for those affected. Chief McCanns, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Commissioners. I hope I can live up to that. Okay, so it's been a year
Already
since we
have.
spoke. Thank you. It's been a year since we spoke on this topic. So I will give you an update as to what is occurring locally and what we're doing even on a larger scale throughout the county and what have you. So this is a trend that we're showing, and I'm actually just doing a split at the bottom this year as a suggestion from one of my colleagues, that total events of 72, 42 were dispatched as behavioral, 30 were dispatched as overdoses. The behaviorals were frequently associated with overdoses. Now, when you have the charting list, you have just so many things to pick from. So you have to pretty much just pick how it was presented, put out to you as what we call the chief complaint. So it would take a deeper dive into every chart for altered mental status, for anything which is over 300 and some charts. So while we can parse that out, that gets down into the actual written portion of the chart, which is difficult to do. But it is something that we'll try to keep a better trend on as we go. But we do have a reduction in the amount of Narcan usage and naloxone. Now, I make the distinction because Narcan is actually the dose that is given in the single container that is distributed to basic life support providers, police officers, the public, anybody who is administering it in the field who is not a professional as far as an advanced provider. Paramedics give naloxone. We actually draw it up into a syringe and give a measured dose because we have cases where it's appropriate to give it, but we have to really meter how much we give. And cases for that, like the first one that comes to mind would be somebody who perhaps is on home therapy for perhaps cancer, and they have a fentanyl patch, perhaps put another one on, didn't get the other one fully off, or forgot about it. And now we don't want to completely erase their pain coverage, but we need to bring up their mental status to a higher level and support the respirations that way. So there are times we have to alter that a little bit. I actually think that reduction also in the Narcan deployed is, by and large, people are giving Narcan before we ever get there, and sometimes it's not admitted to us that it was given. I like to bring up this bit of awareness because a number of parents have said to me, I saw these things, I didn't know what they were. And perhaps their child, they're somebody else who they're sharing a house with, will have certain unusual items that show up, and they're very closely associated with the use of opioids. On the left-hand side, you'll see what looks like a small, like the world's smallest egg roll wrapper. That's probably the best way I can describe it. It's a small waxy piece of paper that folds over and looks just like a little egg roll wrapper. It will frequently have some sort of a design on the outside. That is whoever's distributing that particular heroin. That one has a pistol on it. Some will have a dragon's head, smiley faces, all kinds of things. And that's so somebody knows when they purchased from somebody that they know who the person is they got it from, and if they like the product, they would return. It's basically a form of advertising. We'll also sometimes see those small, like Ziploc bags, teeny tiny ones. The bigger giveaways are those needles that you see on the far right-hand side, the orange tipped ones, the ones that are frequently used for insulin. We also call them tuberculin needles. And that's a very small, very fine needle. And they're readily available. And that is, somebody will use that, get heroin into a liquid form. It's so pure currently that it can be mixed pretty much with just plain water, and it'll dissolve and draw up. If it doesn't dissolve readily, people will put it in a spoon, heat the spoon, it warms up the liquid, and it'll dissolve readily into the water. Then it's drawn into the syringe and injected. Sometimes there'll be some sort of a device, a shoestring, a piece of rubber, like the tourniquet you'll have put on your arm. It's not a true tourniquet, it's a restrictor. Or if you've ever donated blood or you've given blood for tests, that restrictor they put on somebody's arm so that it engorges the veins and it's easier to hit and inject. But those things found sometimes in maybe a cigar box or a little kit of some sort, a parent will find that, and that will be the thing that triggers them to get help for somebody in their house, or at least engage them and start the conversation. What's the response look like in Haverford Township? Well, right off the bat, if you call 911 for an overdose, you'll have the closest police sector car respond to you. And we are blessed with well-trained officers. It'll typically be 2 units, sometimes more. And all officers in Haverford Township are CPR certified and aggressively provide CPR. Haverford Township Police also are equipped with a medical bag. In that medical bag is their 2 doses of Narcan, the automatic external defibrillator, a stop-the-bleed kit, a bag valve mask for ventilating a patient, and they're trained annually in all of this equipment. And they actually use it regularly. Following close behind them is the Emergency Medical Services Unit. You will get a mobile intensive care unit, one of our MICUs, that's staffed with an EMT and a paramedic, or sometimes 2 paramedics, providing advanced life support. Additional ALS responder units, there'll be supervisor units such as myself or the Narberth supervisor truck or my Deputy Chief Victor Berg will respond as well. Narcan. Just to review with you, it's an opioid antagonist. Sometimes we call it it's the antidote. It's not really. It works only on opioid overdoses, so only on heroin, only on morphine, and the things in that family, in the opioid family specifically. Paramedics, as I explained, use a slightly different version, that goes by the generic name of naloxone. No prescription is needed for Narcan. You can just ask for it. Delaware County does provide it for free. If any of your constituents, if anybody who looks at this recording, if you feel as though you need it, if you have a suspicion you might need it, just call, no questions asked, we provide it for free. You know what, I'm gonna, just while
Is
I'm
that
here.
walk into any pharmacy and you get it for free?
Yes, you can go in and ask. You go in. I don't know if it's free in a pharmacy. I believe you can ask. And if they have units from the county, they'll give them to you. If not, they'll tell you where to get them in the county. But it's also covered on all insurance, or it's actually fairly inexpensive. Commissioner Gondek, you are the EMS commissioner. So I'm going to ask you to come up here for a demonstration, please, sir. And this is what Narcan looks like in the box. There's 2 doses. That's exactly what our police department carries. So if we have somebody that we suspect of having an overdose, somebody's unconscious, unresponsive, perhaps there's some paraphernalia there, we don't have another explanation, they're not laying at the bottom of a ladder with, a can of paint splashed around them, they haven't passed out in the heat, whatever, it's a situation where like this isn't right. Somebody perhaps is by themselves in the bathroom, we hear them collapse, or we just can't wake them up, we don't have a reason, or we have a high level of suspicion. Mr. Gondek, please take that in your hand and open it up.
Put me on the spot, I've never done
I
this.
am. Well, most people haven't until they do it the first time. So just show everybody. I'm going to ask you not to touch the little red button. Don't touch that. All right, now, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, my friend. Go ahead and stick that in my nose. Now, it doesn't go up my nose, it goes back inside.
Oh,
Go ahead.
It's going up there. I don't have to take anything off?
Nope, just stick it right in. It's your only chance. And then push the button. Okay. I'm kidding. Mr. Gondek just gave me a dose of Narcan. It's inert. It does nothing but block. You're done. Thank you. Well done. Well done, sir. Yes, a round of applause. What it does, it will block a receptor site in my central nervous system for opioids. And that receptor site will be more attracted to Narcan than it is to the opioid itself. As a matter of fact, it'll actually, if you will, kind of push the
They'll replace it.
opioid molecule off of my central nervous system and take its place. That's all it does. It actually has less side effects than Tums. Now, there is what we call a relative contraindication to this. And that is, right now, I shouldn't go out and say go skateboarding or, doing that parquet thing, jumping in between buildings, because opioids won't work on me for at least 45 minutes, roughly. All right.
So you shouldn't hurt yourself.
That's right. I got to be really careful right now. I'm just going to go over there and sit down. We spoke last year of Trank, which is an additive that's in just about everything that is distributed in Philadelphia drug-wise. So it is found in cocaine. It is found in the other drugs that are distributed. Trank was the thing I was telling you about last time, xylazine, that is causing these horrible necrotic wounds. Again, this is another year I won't show you what they look like, though we have seen plenty of them here in the township and people who have been traveling through the township, and I've actually seen a number in Philadelphia. The bad news of this is Trank is going away because it's been replaced. It's been replaced by medetomidine. Medetomidine is an even stronger animal sedative. If you remember, carfentanil was a veterinary fentanyl. When you get into animals like the size of some of the ones at the Philadelphia Zoo, by the time you could push enough in that is in the same concentration we give a human, by the time you get done pushing it in, the beginning of the dose would already be going through its half-life and wearing off. So you couldn't get it in fast enough. So to make it super concentrated, well, you sit here and you go, well, why would somebody add that to something that's already addictive? Well, it makes it significantly more addictive. And this is so concentrated, they have to sneak much less in to the country. So what they can do now, it's about 100 times more powerful. So I need 1/100th of the amount of Trank that I was sneaking in before to get in now. So perhaps somebody could just get in with a half a cup of this stuff, and they have more than enough to poison most of the city. It also complicates overdoses in many ways. One, it does very much lower somebody's heart rate and blood pressure. That's a challenge for us. And we know that opioids do that anyhow, but they do that by suppressing the respiratory drive. This drives it down even further. It's because it's not an opioid, it's unresponsive to naloxone. So once the naloxone is given, if it doesn't work and this person remains sedated, we can guess it's one of the polypharmacs, as we call it, one of the additives to the opioid. So it is said to be the worst withdrawal possible. Well, once you get somebody within a dose or two who's now addicted to something and the withdrawal is unbearable, you now have a customer for life. And that life may not be long, but you have a customer for life. So that's the drive behind this. And yes, it does give the same horrible ulcerative and wounds that lead to loss of limbs and other spontaneous issues. So it's another challenge. They said during withdrawal, too, that they're known for extremely high blood pressures during withdrawal and actually seizures. There's some other methods are coming up with. I know the University of Pennsylvania is just studying some of the ways to handle withdrawal from this medicine, from this disease, from this chemical. So where do we get help? Help number one in the situation is always 911. Even if somebody doesn't know where to turn, call 911 to steer you the right way. If it needs an emergent response, we'll be there, we'll help you out. Suicide Crisis Hotline, that's 988. We can look at the Delaware County Crisis Connection Team. There's a 24/7 mobile service unit that'll come out and help with behavioral issues that do not need perhaps an immediate response from a group. But now we will use, EMS will frequently call, or police will frequently call this number if we have somebody who's in crisis but is not in an overdose situation. It could be somebody who's severely in withdrawal. So we do have some places, some sources right here in Haverford Township. We have ATN on the township line, and we have Onward Behavioral Services in the Falcon Building on Westchester Pike. But starting at the top, there are national recovery resources. If we go on to the SAMHSA website, you can find a nice listing that gives everything by your zip code, what you can find in that area for behavioral, for supportive family members, for those who are actually going through a recovery crisis. It's currently being absorbed into the Administration for a Healthy America. The website's still good, it's still up, and the resources are still accurate. I checked on it today, though it is in transition to this other group, this other new administration. You can also go to the National Helpline, very similar thing. You can call in or text, and you give them your zip code, and it will give you a list of needed resources in the area. All this will be posted on the township website, by the way, too. The DEA has its version as well. You can go into there, and they give you recovery resources as well. They also have a new branch called the Diversion Control Division of the DEA, and that's something that we as medics now are subjected to, and it is a very intense system of accountability for just about every drop of an opioid that exists. As we do have to carry a certain amount, they are under a heavy lock system that is actually done, that reports in electronically through the through cell service to that it's been opened, it's been accessed, what number went into it, who had access to it. There's several steps that have to go through to get into the vault to get to it. But for us to even update and to get stuff via our medical director has to be in a system. There's a number of checks and balances they go through. Then we go to our source to pick it up. They bring it, we bring it home, and then we log it in here, and the DEA checks all that periodically. We actually log it all electronically now. Some more national recovery resources, and there's some that are tried and true. Alcoholics Anonymous has been around for a long time. Al-Anon, Al-Teen, Narcotics Anonymous, these are all still up and running and are being used. And they actually have meetings locally here in Haverford Township and throughout the area. State and local resources, we can go right on the PA Department of Government for drug and alcohol programs. Pennsylvania actually has a department called of drugs and alcohol programs. They actually sort out what programs are for what purpose and give you just a great way to get into it. That's actually probably the most user-friendly site for it. And Delaware County has a very robust system with withdrawal management, inpatient residential, intensive outpatient, medication-assisted treatment. Whatever the right path is for the patient, we'll find it and get that person their resources and encourage them to stick with it. Now, we did take a big hit with Crozier closing. That was our big crisis center. A number of places are trying to step up and fill that, take in those patients. But currently our system, if somebody's in need, we get them into one of the local emergency rooms and we start working with their social services and their resources to get them into one of the programs. Sometimes it's calling that mobile crisis unit to come right to the ER, or it could be just giving the person a ride down to one of the intake units. Walk-in appointments. There are several places you can just walk in and get help immediately. You don't need to call ahead. You don't need somebody to basically pave the way for you. And we actually have one of those right here in Haverford Township at ATN, American Treatment Network. But we also have them in Media. There's in Chester. There's some. As you can see, Sharon Hill. They're basically throughout the county. Keystone, the first one on the top, and just back up. That's the only one that is 24/7. They can walk in at any time. And then we have that special group from Peggy Muir here in the township, the Haverford Alliance for Drug Awareness, HADA. And they are one of the only homegrown grassroots organizations that I know of. There are several, but that's one that's kind of near and dear. It's the first one I ever heard of. And they're also responsible for that wonderful memorial that's out on the Meadville Strip in the Oakmont area of Haverford Township. And it is a memorial to those who have succumbed to this disease. And I think it serves as a reminder, but it's also a place of hope that there is a chance to get better. And hopefully with these resources and the growing awareness, we can actually make a difference in this disease. Do you have any questions? Boy, I hope I covered everything.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
thanks for the presentation and for your work. It looks like we're continuing to see a trend of more overdoses. And I think last year you mentioned it, maybe that was partly related to Philadelphia's kind of clearing out Kensington to some extent. Is that still a factor?
That's still a factor. We've had quite a number of cases. Just recently, a gentleman we're called to on Steel Road, right at Drexel, and he had said the night before he was at in Philadelphia at a hospital. They discharged him, and he was put on a bus, and he wound up here. I'm hearing now that SEPTA will just allow you to get on a bus and go where you need to go if you think you can get help somewhere.
And anecdotally, I'm just, are we seeing less? I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, the late teens, early 20s in the township, is that decreased somewhat?
I think it has decreased what we see, but my worry is that a lot of that is the home Narcan. I'm really worried that it's not that it's not true recovery. However, my worry continues with these additives that are put into it, the tranq and the metamidine, that these wounds and stuff is actually what's giving away people now as being the ones who are sick. It's sepsis is what they're showing up with, but that's never what the dispatch is for. Sometimes we don't get the overdose dispatch. We get the dispatch for a sick person. This person has this horrific wound growing on their body, and they're not telling us where they're from, what they did, what happened, but we know what it is, and they're seeking treatment for that. Well, that's not really an overdose, but we know that it's use. So it's kind of I don't know that the numbers are giving the full picture. So I'm hopeful, but we'll see. We're still doing, I say it's really all hands on deck still.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Certainly. Thank you.
Further questions or comments?
I appreciate your time. Thanks.
You exceeded my expectations. Thank you. It was that demonstration that really did it for me. Thank you. So we'll move on to review the items scheduled for consideration at the September 8th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Next week, the Board of Commissioners looks forward to presenting 2 special proclamations. Commissioner Hart will honor Charlie Hannon for achieving the rank of Eagle Scout, and Commissioner McCollum will recognize the Hilltop 8, 10, and 12 and under girls softball teams for their outstanding accomplishment as PA District 1 champions. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding the presentation of these 2 proclamations? Hearing none, I'll move on. So next week, the board will consider appointing a resident to fill 1 current vacancy on the Civil Service Commission, as well as 2 vacancies on the Human Relations Commission. Are there any questions or comments regarding these appointments? Hearing none, we'll move on. So next week, the board will consider the approval of warrants as detailed in the public agenda packet that will be published prior to Monday's meeting. Are there any questions or comments at this time regarding the approval of warrants? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda items. Before we begin the review of our individual items listed under the consent agenda, I'd like to remind my colleagues and the public that these items will be considered with a single vote at next week's meeting. Each item is outlined in greater detail in the public agenda packet, and we'll take time this evening to review them individually. If any member of the board would like an item to be considered separately, they may request its removal either tonight or at next week's meeting so that it may be addressed independently. So there are currently 4 items listed under the consent agenda for next week. Next week, under the consent agenda, the board will consider approval of the minutes from our August 11th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Commissioners. At this time, do any of my colleagues have any questions, comments, or proposed edits to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Under item B in the consent agenda, the board will consider awarding a contract to Eco Services LLC for asbestos abatement and disposal services at 1744 Vermont Road at a cost of $13,947. Funding for this project will come from the township capital funds. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this contract award? Hearing none, Under item C in the consent agenda, the board will consider approving the sale of 9 township vehicles that are no longer in use as recommended by our Public Works Director. The vehicles include police, sewer, and highway vehicles. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this agenda item? Hearing none. Under item D in the consent agenda, the board will consider approving the purchase of playground equipment for Polo Field in the 5th Ward at a cost of $42,964. Funding for this purchase will come from the Polo Field Fund. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this purchase order? Okay, then we'll move on to review our ordinances. There are 3 ordinances under consideration next week. We'll begin with ordinance number P9 2025, which again requires children under the age of 16 to wear helmets while riding electric scooters or e-bikes in Haverford Township. As a reminder, the police department will issue warnings for violations of the helmet ordinance through December 31st, 2025, allowing for a grace period / educational campaign to take place. And as the chief mentioned, it's already launched today. And then beginning January 1st, 2026, a $25 fine will be imposed for violations. If passed on Monday, the ordinance will go into effect 10 days later. So with that said, are there any questions or comments from my colleagues related to this proposed ordinance at this time? Okay, moving on to the next ordinance. Number P10 2025, which will allow for sticker parking on Brookline Boulevards, purpose parking on Pennsylvania Avenue, no parking here at a corner on Panmure Road and Buck Lane, and a prohibition of parking of commercial vehicles on Olcott Avenue. This is the second reading, but it sounds like there may be a comment or a question.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Hart brought up at the August meeting that typically we would see these separated out and voted on individually. I don't know if that's because we voted on them as a group in August, if we're forced to vote on them as a group, or if we can split them out.
Mr. Walco, do you have an opinion on that?
There's no reason that they need to be handled all at the same time if they're all separate ordinances, all separate sections. So it would be appropriate if this board wanted to address them one at a time, or to pull one out and address the 3, whatever is easiest for the time and economy of them.
Am I correct then in thinking that we would have to create 4 then separate ordinances, which would make it explain that process a little bit more for me?
You would assign a different number for each of them, but you're not changing the substance
Okay.
themselves.
Okay. If that's the will of this board, then I think we can just break them out and do that for next meeting. I think it is, so let's plan to do that. Thank you. Any further questions or comments related to that?
Since I was the one that brought it up, I would just ask in the future that we do it. I don't know that it's necessary to do it for this one. I mean, it's up to the board. If we want to split them all out, in the future, I think we should vote on each of these individually, because I would have had a split vote last time.
Well, I think since we already voted this time on all these the first time, can we keep it the way it is, and then the next time when this comes up again, can we not stack them all as that way? So just so it does not interfere with anything. Since we already did vote that way.
Could I suggest something?
Please.
One of us next week will have to move ordinance number P10 for consideration, and somebody else will have to second it. If there's somebody so inspired then to then ask that the person who moved P10 to agree that they be turned into P10, P12, P13, and P14, the person who moves the initial ordinance would have to agree or not agree, as would the seconder. And so depending on whether it's you or me that moves this ordinance, we can say no, and we can decide this ordinance in its current configuration. I would suggest that it would take official action by us to divide up this ordinance into 4 ordinances, since we did adopt it the first time. Yeah. But I certainly agree with what everybody is saying, is that these parking ordinances certainly shouldn't be lumped 4 together. I mean, 2 together in the same lot where you have no parking on one end of the street and no parking on the other end of the same street they may relate, but these four were put together in part because one was added at the last minute by me. So I certainly agree for the future, but that's how we should proceed next week, I think.
And I have, just to be clear, I have no objection if we vote on all four of these together. I mean, I voted last week and my position will not change. But I was raising it as a point of discussion, which is what work sessions are for, is that we should, in the future, I think Commissioner Hart's right that we should handle these individually in the future. So I'm certainly not going to raise an objection if somebody moves these forward as a collective at that point. Agreed.
Any further comments? Then I'll just note that I think moving into next week, we'll plan to continue to keep all four together for P10 2025. And then moving forward in the future, we'll plan to break them out individually. Thank you. Any further comments? Just to conclude. Okay. So next week, the board will consider a first reading of ordinance number P11 2025, limiting parking to 2 hours on both sides of Pilgrim Lane between Warrior Road and Signal Road in Ward 9. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding this traffic ordinance? Hearing none, we'll move on to resolutions now. Next week, the board will consider 3 resolutions, starting with resolution number 2455-2025, approving a revision to Haverford Township's official sewage facilities or Act 537 plan for properties on Darby Road and Marple Road that are not currently connected to the public sewer system. Mr. Pannoni can confirm, but the plan, my understanding, and forgive me, the plan confirms that these properties will continue using individual on-lot sewage disposal systems and affirms that the township will implement a sewage management program in compliance with the PADEP requirements. Once adopted by this board, the revised plan will be submitted to the DEP for approval. Mr. Pannoni, do you have anything further you'd like to offer related to 537 plan revision?
Just a little clarification so the board understands. This is a revision that we were required to undertake. The DEP came in a few years ago. Well, every municipality is required to have a 537 plan, sewage facilities plan. Similar to like your comprehensive plan, it has to be updated periodically. Our township is very mature. Our township is predominantly public sewer. There's 100 homes, or I should say properties, that are left on lot systems. We haven't updated this plan since the late 90s and early 80s. The plan was updated with the same conclusion: maintain on-lot sewage disposal systems for those remaining homes. Until when and if they get to the point where they can no longer dispose of their sewage on site, then they'd have to connect to public sewer. But it's relatively straightforward. We're not really changing anything we're doing to the way we're doing business.
And to connect into public sewer would involve extending sewer lines as
Not everywhere, but most of the places. Especially the two that were in the focus part of the study area, which is Darby Road and Marple Road, would require the extension of public sewers. There's a few areas where we have houses contiguous to public sewers that we just have to connect when and if sometime when and if the system fails.
And just reading it, cesspools are, can't build them now, but they're grandfathered in if someone has it.
Surprisingly, we have a few cesspools left. Yep.
Oh.
Most of them are the septic systems with a tank and a field. There's a few what we call sand mounds, which are the mounds that sit up in the air. And then there's a few of the old cesspools that are left.
Any further questions or comments?
I have a couple questions, Mr. Pannoni. It said in the report that surveys were sent out to 67 homeowners and 30 of them responded. And and in the 30 responses, they indicated the state of repairs or replacement of their on-lot sewage disposal systems, et cetera, et cetera. What about the 37 that didn't respond to the survey? Is there any sort of requirement that they sort of update the status, or how is that inspected to make sure it's functioning properly?
Well, that's going to be part of the ordinance. Well, first off, they're supposed to function properly, period. There's no discretion on that part of a property owner. The ordinance would require documentation of operation and maintenance. And then it would say, look, you got to provide your pumping records, you got to provide your maintenance records. It would establish a period, it would enforce the establishment of the pumping. But it doesn't change how they're required to operate their system now. Nobody's allowed to let their system fail and discharge over the ground.
And is there any kind of incentive or consequence if they don't file those required reports?
Well, it's not common, but everyone, and very, very uncommon in this township, frankly, because usually what we'll see is a system will maybe usually we see a system turn over at the point of sale. Somebody goes to sell their house, the system's been working okay when it's empty nesters, but now they're going to sell it to somebody with a family, and their water usage is going to increase. At that point of sale, the buyers will say, the system's inadequate for my 6-person family. But it's not unheard of. It's very rare that we'll get a complaint of a failure. And I'm not talking about just here, I'm talking about regionally. And then go out and respond to the complaint, require an upgrade. It happens, but it's uncommon. Usually it's a point of sale or a voluntary repair. But a lot of times we'll see a voluntary repair. Someone will see their tank starting to clog or their field's not working well, and they'll contact the septic system company and start to repair it.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. For a homeowner to tie in, for a homeowner who's not in the public system to tie in, that's an expense that's borne by the homeowner, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And oftentimes we see that via development, and that's part of why we didn't think it was, for the third time, a very feasible and reasonable alternative to extend public sewers to those two really focused study areas. Very, very expensive to extend public sewer to Marple Road and Darby Road, relatively speaking. And that would be borne via an assessment to the property owner.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you. The board will consider Resolution 2458-2025 next week, approving the consolidation of 2 existing properties located at 2620 Prescott Road. It's my understanding that the engineer for that subdivision or that consolidation is here. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the board.
Excuse me, Patrick Spellman, Site Engineering Concepts. I'm here with the owners, Amy and Paul Needle. Is this on here, by the way? Let's see if I can figure this out, or I may have to help a younger person help me. If not, I have it on a flash drive. So very quickly, this is a lot consolidation under the ordinance. It's deemed a subdivision, a minor subdivision. That's the procedures we are following. But we are not subdividing this property. They own 2 properties, contiguous properties, that are under this 2 separate tax ID parcels that are under the same deed. So they have to there we go, excellent, thank you. So they have decided to consolidate their properties to make any issues going forward, whether it's a mortgage or an addition or anything along those lines, simpler. In the process of consolidating this, right now both lots are fairly non-conforming. See if I can. All right, that might have been easier, but. So right now, they're between the 2 lots. There are 9 non-conforming conditions on the property. They would be all the ones in parentheses on this table. And by consolidating them, we will get them down to basically 3. The front yard setback, the side yard setback because of an existing, and I'll show you that in a second, and then the rear yard setback. So I will, there it is. So zooming in on the one lot, which actually contains the structures, you can see the house is 18 feet from the front yard, and that's not going to change by any of this. And then the detached garage is the other two. But everything else, and especially impervious, will go to conforming. It's really that simple. This is the property line that's being removed. These are the setbacks associated with that property line that would be removed. Yeah.
Any questions?
Any questions? Anything you need to know?
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the next resolution, number 2459-2025, a minor saldo or subdivision and land development ordinance change for 564 Central Avenue. I understand that the engineer is here for this. You could please introduce yourself to the board. It looks like we're pulling up something for you to share with us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Yawn. I'm the civil engineer for this project. This is a property 564 Central Avenue that has one existing single-family home on it that will be demolished. We're subdividing the property into two lots to create two new single-family homes. They'll each have their own stormwater management systems in the front yard. We did go to the Planning Commission. We're recommended for approval with a few conditions, which are all will comply. We did go to the Shade Tree Commission, received approval with some conditions that were will comply. We did resubmit plans to address the Township Engineer's review letter. We have a newer letter with only about 3 or 4 minor comments. So I'm happy to go into further detail if you'd like or answer any questions.
My colleagues have any questions?
I have a question, not necessarily, oh, I'm sorry, Larry.
No, go ahead, then
I do have a question, and I've looked through the paperwork, or the paperwork that was supplied in our packet on this one. I see that this project is requesting a waiver of sidewalks. But I don't see the Planning Commission weighing in on that waiver. Did I miss something, or? They're not recommend granting the waiver. Okay.
Are you still seeking one?
Yes.
A waiver of sidewalks?
Yes, we are. The motion from the Planning Commission was to approve the plan and not grant the waiver, and then there was a split vote because some of the Planning Commission members were in favor of granting the waiver of sidewalk and others were not. But we are still requesting the waiver of no sidewalk. There's no sidewalk on Central Avenue, and now I forget the two roads, but all the way to the north or on the left on the plan, all the way down to the intersection.
Bon Air.
I'm sorry?
Bon Air Terrace.
Bon Air Terrace. And then to the right, is that Fairview?
Correct.
And then all the way down to the right, there's no sidewalks on either side of the street except for one property all the way at the corner.
That property is across. This Central Avenue does, though, lead to Hilltop.
At that, to the south, yes. Yes.
And may I ask, is there any specific reason why a waiver is being requested, other than just not wanting to put it in?
My own personal opinion as an engineer is that I don't think it makes sense to put in sidewalks when there's nothing else around it. I've seen several properties, not all in Haverford, but in places where they were made to be put in at certain times, and you'd have a section of sidewalk that's all cracked, that has a 4-foot verge, and another section that has an 8-foot verge, and it just, I think it looks worse to have one section of sidewalk and a whole other street that has none. This is a developed section of the township that, in my opinion, isn't going to have sidewalk installed just on land development or subdivision projects. It would take the township's efforts to do so.
Are there any topographical impediments to putting the sidewalks in?
No.
Did the planning commission, actually, I'll ask my board members. We currently have in place an ordinance where the sidewalks can be waived, but for a fee. Is that a fee in lieu of sidewalks, right?
That usually, and is the case in Haverford, is not something that's codified into an ordinance. Fee and lieu in general are not codified. If that's something the board was seeking, that was something that could be, I guess, negotiated. But, and this board.
So it's not in our ordinance, is what you're telling me?
It's not in our ordinance, and it usually is not in an ordinance. So.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. Is there anything besides, you mentioned, I think, 3, you said you got a couple comments from the engineer, and are there any other things in the, that you are seeking that are inconsistent with what the township or the township engineer has concluded?
No, that's the only waiver request. We don't have any variances, and all the other comments will comply.
Okay, so it's just sidewalks?
Yes.
Is the only, I don't want to say variance, because we're not talking about a variance. It's the only variation of the only difference between what the township and the engineer have recommended and what you're seeking.
Am I correct in thinking that there are sidewalks nearby, maybe on the corner towards the park?
Yes, if you go to the
Towards the field,
south,
forgive me.
or
That's on Bon Air Terrace. That's what we were talking about.
yeah, when you're looking, if you're looking at the plan all the way to, when you go down to the end of the street to the right, there's 2 properties on the corner, and one of those properties has a sidewalk that wraps around. None of the others on Central do.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to next week, the board will consider approving an application for conditional use submitted by St. Faith Equity LLC in Wonder Spring for their property at 1208 Alston Road. The request is to legalize the existing use as a private educational center with accessory and related uses, including but not limited to a nursery school, kindergarten, elementary school enrichment center, summer camp, and recreational facility. For the viewing public, this matter was the subject of a public hearing in August. And with that said, are there any questions or comments from my colleagues regarding this agenda item? Okay. Yep. I heard something. Any questions?
No, not right now.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on. So next week, the board will consider approving the annual certification of the township's minimum municipal obligation as prepared by Thomas J. Anderson and Associates in the amount of $4,676,646 for the police pension plan and $2,200,917 for the non-uniform defined benefit pension plan and $236,050 for the non-uniform defined contribution pension plan. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues regarding this agenda item?
This is something that we discussed also in our at the Finance Committee level. To remind the public, this is an annual exercise that the township must conduct. Our chief financial officer has to certify by the last day of September of each year the amounts required to meet the minimum requirements to fund 3 pension plans: our police pension plan, our non-uniform pension plan, and now our non-uniformed defined contribution plan. So this is a series of calculations that are provided by our professionals and then reviewed and certified by our chief financial officer, our finance director, and then adopted by us. So these Numbers are always being configured and reconfigured, and when it's put in front of us next week, Ms. Cuthbertson will explain the ingredients of each, and we will consider it and adopt it.
That's great. Any other further questions or comments? Hearing none. Next week, the board will consider approving a 2-year purchase agreement extension of Haverford Township participation in the Delaware County Public Schools Healthcare Trust, which provides medical and prescription coverage for employees and dependents at significant savings. According to the memo we received, the renewal rate for 2026 is set at 5.9%, well below the market trend of 9.4%. And the agreement would run from January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2027. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues about this agreement? Well, that concludes our preview of the September 8th agenda. Are there any final questions, comments, concerns, or any other items that you'd like to discuss tonight? I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. So moved.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.